I'm Lakshmi, host of the Heartfulness Pearl. Delighted to take up this topic, where and how to find peace. After all, don't we all want to increase the amount of happiness and peace in our lives? Happy to welcome Peter Redding, a recognized leader in the coaching profession and was one of the first in the world to be awarded the MCC Master Certified Coach credentials from the ICF. He co-founded Coach for Life Institute, the spiritually based coach training school in 1996. Nice to host you, Peter.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Great. Now tell us a bit about the Coach Self-Tech series.
Well, Core Self-Tech, Coach for Life, the core principle inside of that is, does the individual actually know who they are? Really know who they are, not who they've been told that they are. And we'll get into that maybe a little bit more in depth in the next 45 minutes or so. But the basis of this whole thing is, how can an individual live a life that's conscious, that the decisions are made consciously and in congruency and alignment with, again, who they really are. So that's been the motivating force behind all of it. And I'm excited to share parts of that with the audience today.
We're excited to listen as well. And I think this webinar is right up your alley as well. Now, Peter is a published author. His book, Positively Brilliant Self-Mastery, comes from his own self-journey of self-mastery, as well as teaching thousands of professionals over the past 25 years. He has taught coaches how to live their own most authentic self of self-mastery, and provides coaches the understanding of the principles and tools so they can support their coaching clients to do the same. Now, he was recently interviewed for the Heartfulness magazine, and those of you who are interested can find it online at heartfulnessmagazine.com. Now, we chose to present this webinar in conjunction with the UN Day, October 24th, and this year, 2020, is their 75th anniversary as well. Now, quoting from the United Nations serves as a global forum where countries can raise and discuss the most difficult issues, including problems of war and peace. In addition to maintaining the international peace and security, the UN protects human rights, delivers humanitarian aid, promotes sustainable development, and upholds international law. And one of their SDGs is peace, justice, and strong institutions. And how? By promoting peace and inclusive societies for sustainable development at all levels. Now, given that context, to me, it makes sense to have this discussion now on where and how to find peace. Now, we in Heartfulness celebrated Peace Day on September 21st and heard some great thoughts on peace from musicians, sports people, and world-renowned spiritual leaders as well. And Daji, who is a world leader of Heartfulness, says, it is our collective intention and attention towards peace that will create peace. To explore this further, I was talking to a few of my friends about peace, and it was interesting to see how each of them define peace differently. So I wanted to start this session by asking you, Peter, how would you define peace?
Like you say, there's so many definitions of peace, and there's so many different aspects of peace. But for me, it's about, am I peaceful in my own skin? Am I peaceful with my own life? And as simple of a question that might be, my experience for my own life, as well as those that I support and teach, here's my estimate that 98% of the world is not at peace with themselves. So peace for me begins and starts with self, and we can explore how we get there or how do we know that. it's such an existential question of why am I here, and who am I? And when I don't know who I am not at peace with myself. And if I'm not at peace with myself, then my, again, experience is that I can't really be at peace with those around me. So if in a simple definition of peace, it is I am at peace, I am happy, I have a sense of fulfillment with and for myself. That's my definition of peace.
Awesome, Peter. I mean, we're going to explore a little bit later about that authentic self that you kind of touched on now, a little bit later on. Now, but I wanted to start off from my experience, you know, and from my own search for peace through meditation and learning from the spiritual teachers of the Heartfulness traditions. You know, I've learned that peace already exists within us. However, we are so caught up with the distractions that we're totally oblivious to this amazing, profound peace within. Now, how would you remind people of this profound truth? How exactly do we find that true happiness and peace in our hearts and minds?
Well, and there's the $1 million question. How do we find that? If it's already there, how come I don't feel peaceful? How come I feel anxiety? How come I feel judged by others or by myself? I think there's two parts to this. Number one is holding the belief that there's actually peace within me. I think that's the first step. To actually know that there may be something in me that I've forgotten or has been masked over by other programming or conditioning in life. To actually remember and believe, yes, I have, because I'm human, I have the capacity within me and the wherewithal within me to access that peace, maybe once again. Maybe it's been a long time. But once again, I can do that. That's number one. Number two then is, again, coming back to that, who am I? Who am I? Am I, okay, looking at me, I'm an American. Looking at me, I'm a male. Looking at me, I am an elder, and so on. But is that the real me? Is that the deep down core part of who Peter Redding is? And I would say no. It has, in some cases, supported me to be all of these things. In some cases, it's been a detriment. Sometimes it's a separation from others because they don't relate to me. But again, going back to the peace part is, how can I get in touch with that part of me? And I think that's a journey. I don't think that, you wake up in the afternoon at 3 o'clock or something and say, okay, I think I'm going to be at peace with myself, know who I am by, 6 o'clock. And it's done. It's done. I don't need to worry about it after that.
Yeah, I wish it was that simple.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
Now, we'll give you a technique to get at it quickly, even in the time that we have together today. But it is a journey in terms of remembering. Just because I know something doesn't mean I'm living it. There's still
right.
reactions I have to this event or this person or these kinds of people or whatever around me. It's like, oh no, I'm afraid of them because I just don't know if I'm safe with them. So I think there's a lot of decluttering that goes on in the journey. Again, to come back to that, and I absolutely categorically believe that every human being has love in their heart, has peace in their heart. They've just forgotten about it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Now, you touched upon this earlier as well. And I'm getting it loud and clear that we all need to self-evaluate our reasons for happiness at first. And once we're kind of sure, where that's going to, or what gives us true happiness, we should follow the path to gain peace, right? And we need to find out for that, as you're saying, who we truly are within. Now, how do we find that authentic self? Are there techniques for connecting with our inner selves? Does one size fit all?
I think there's lots of paths to that. I think you've talked about one of the most important ones the world has known about, and that's meditation. Quiet the mind. Kind of tune out career, tune out issues, tune out what's bugging you. And to sit there and open yourself up to the divine, to the knowingness, to the reality of what's available to every human being, I believe, 24/7, 365. So a question that relates to that is, am I prepared to open up to receive that? Or am I closed and say, yeah, okay, yeah, that's okay for you because you have money, or that's okay with you because you're not dealing with kids, or it's okay with you because you're not dealing with this, out, or the other. But the truth is that that's all the other people's lives. Am I open to receive that sense of peace, that sense of joy, that sense of connectedness? And I think there's a lot of ways of doing that. Like I say, meditation, I think, is probably on the top of the list. That's been known for thousands of years. But walking in nature and opening up to the grandeur of the planet, the water, the air, the vegetation, the animals, the beauty. Spending time with a small child, seeing their innocence. Getting tickled with the ribbon that they're playing with instead of the present. There's just such a joyousness in that I see in my generation, the grandchildren, the grandparents of the grandchildren that are just reborn into that sense of joyfulness and what's real, what's real, really. Yeah, so I think there's lots of things. Art is a great avenue for this, all its forms. So yeah, lots of different ways of getting at it.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, other than meditation, of course, there's so many other ways as well. And nature is one way, as you mentioned, too, isn't it? But from my experience, I certainly also believe that meditation is the key. And with conviction, I'd like to share that heartfulness meditation, that's one thing we learn to connect with our inner self, by listening to the heart's voice. And Daji, again, who's the spiritual leader of Heartfulness, I'd like to quote him. I try and read it as often as I can. Through meditation, consciousness becomes the mirror that reflects your innate nature. Now, all answers ultimately will come from the heart. Whether to listen or not to listen, to change or not to change ourselves, all these signals come from the heart. If the heart is misguided, what can you do? So when we meditate, this misguidance disappears. You face yourself as you are. Now, this is exactly what you're talking about, right, Peter? This authentic self and being open, isn't it? So I just wanted to share that,
Yeah, bang on.
With our audience.
Bullseye. It's exactly what I'm talking about. And I further believe that every human being has that within them. It's not, you can't lose it because you've been a bad person or you did something that you wish you hadn't done. I think that is something that is divinely placed in us. There is, and it's always there, regardless of how I've lived my life. I may be not living according to that or in alignment with that sense of innate magnificence is what I refer to it as. but it's nevertheless, it's in fact innate. I was born with it. I have it now. I'll have it when I die. And maybe I'll have it in my next lifetime if you believe that. But it is absolutely innate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said, actually. I mean, couldn't agree more. It's just that sometimes we don't realize it and we lose that connection, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
again, it's one thing to be, with inner peace when we're sitting quietly in our own space, deeply connected in meditation. How do we carry that into our day-to-day life so that that peace becomes a part of us? Is there a way of reconnecting if we lose that deep connection within?
Well, I think all the experts on meditation will also talk about walking meditation, working meditation, lifetime meditation. So I think meditation has kind of been put in a box by a lot of us that say, okay, yes, I can only do that in a quiet place. I can only do that when the kids aren't around. I can only do that when I'm not getting phone calls or emails or WhatsApp messages. But I think the fact of the matter is that meditation is a way of being, regardless of what I'm doing. So again, I think it's practice, because as a human being, I get distracted. I get distracted with this, I get distracted with that. And then I lose myself in that process. Again, going back to the sense of a journey, and practice makes perfect. Practice my meditation, yes, while I'm sitting in quietly, absolutely. And practice it while I'm eating. Practicing it while I'm having a conversation. Practice it while I'm driving. In fact, I could use more of that when I'm driving.
I think many of us will relate to that.
Yeah. But I think it's the same concept of, am I being myself as I am going about the different parts of my life? Or not? Or maybe to what degree? And the more I get closer and closer to being myself, regardless of what's happening to me or with me or around me, I really like who I am. That does not come from ego. It comes from, in fact, it's amazingly humility that's coming through in terms of my God, if you believe in God, or my higher consciousness has endowed me with these capacities, these abilities to contribute when I'm here to contribute to my planet, to my world, to my family, to my company, to my community. And it's amazingly humble. It's like, oh, wow, what did I do to deserve that?
Very profound thoughts, Peter. Just staying in, coming from that place, really living your life from the heart is what you're trying to say, right? Really putting your heart into everything you do and carry it forward.
Yeah.
In Heartfulness, besides meditation, there's a couple of techniques that our teachers suggest, and I found it profoundly beneficial, and we've been doing it during this month of September, particularly leading up to the Peace Day. So I just again wanted to share that with our viewers. The first one is a prayerful suggestion. Just closing our eyes every day at 9 p.m. and giving in a subtle suggestion that all sisters and brothers throughout the world are being filled with love and devotion, and real faith is growing stronger in their hearts. This does create a connection with one and all, and it's a beautiful collective experience, actually. And automatically I'm invoking that in myself too. That's number one. And secondly, the other suggestion is, our teacher Daji would say, just think that everything surrounding us, the air particles, people, the birds, the trees, the flowers, the ceilings, the wall, the paintings. Everything around us is absorbed in godly remembrance, as you touched on earlier. Whenever you get in free time, even while driving, just put a thought that, that we're all connected and everything is immersed in godly remembrance. And what will happen? I'm sure we'll go within ourselves to the very core of our being, right? So mission accomplished in both cases. So now I invite our audience to try it out and, let us know. Now, connecting with our core plays a positive role in inner peace building and outer. Now, could you share some examples from your life, Peter?
I'll give you a great example. This happened to me, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago. But I got a call from actually one of my coaching clients. He was a very powerful, highly compensated gentleman that worked for a major company out of Wall Street, New York. And I think we've been coaching now at that point in time for probably 6 months, 8 months. So he knew me pretty well in terms of my demeanor, my coaching, and all of that. And a great compliment, he said, my company's looking for an instructor to come up to New York and talk about kinds of things that we're talking about today, frankly. Higher level consciousness. I go, wow, you picked the right guy. I love talking about that. And so it progressed. I put in an RFP to their request, and they came back and they said, okay, so yeah, we like you, we like what you're talking about, but could you do it in 4 hours instead of 8 hours? And I said, I could, but it's not going to be as powerful or as deep. And they said, that's okay. It'd be like a starter. Anyhow, it kind of progressed, but they kept on coming back with things like, okay, so now, yeah, time's really crunched now. Can we do it in 2 hours? And so I looked at my own values. I looked at my own life purpose. And to be true to myself, I took my proposal back and said, I'm no longer interested in doing this. Okay, now this could have led to hundreds of thousands of dollars, quite literally. But it was incongruent in terms of what they were ready to receive as opposed to what I was ready and able to give. It was not in congruency. So there's an example of taking a really hard decision, at least a financial decision, to say, they're not prepared to receive the work that I'm ready to give. And if I take super or uber responsibility, self-responsibility of, okay, so I have a certain number of years or hours on the planet, I have gifts to contribute. If I squander my time giving that to someone that's not ready for it, then who am I denying being able to spend that time with? Energetically, physically, etc. Then I'm not being true to myself. That's a very poignant point in terms of, am I living a life, am I making conscious choices about being in alignment with who I know myself to be and what I can contribute to do my best and brightest for the time I have here on the planet. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, Peter. And this comes with also being more aware of ourselves, right?
Yeah.
That way we know our limitations, we know our, as you say, our core values, and we align ourselves always. We always have a choice, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in the words of Gandhi, comes to mind is, be the change you want to see in the world. Now, what place does the individual have in creating world peace? What is their responsibility in terms of self-development? And what is their responsibilities to their family or community?
Oh, sure. You want all of that, don't you, in one answer? Okay, so I'm going to tie two things in together that you yourself have shared over the last 10 minutes or so. There is a sense that I am connected. Peter Redding is connected to Lakshmi. Okay, even before we met, we have an ethereal connection, we have an energetic connection, we have a spiritual connection, we have a humanity connection. I don't know what all of that is, but I believe that I have that with every single human being on the planet. And I think that every other human being on the planet also has that connection to all the rest of us. That's number one. Number two is if I am not at peace with myself, so going back to kind of the core of the question, do I start with myself and does that help world peace? My answer to that is categorically yes. In fact, it can't be any different than that. So first of all, it's self-peace. And to the degree that I have that level of peace, then I am exuding that out ethereally, energetically, emotionally to all of my others, like you said at the beginning, my brothers and sisters, regardless of race, regardless of color, regardless of age, regardless of economic condition. And I believe that my first and primary responsibility is to that, not my ego self, not my bloated sense of self, but to my core self again, and being at peace with that, because the more I have that within me, my mother used to have a great saying, she's passed now, but she used to have a great saying, she said, you know, Peter, when I'm full, it's easy to be generous. When I have a sense of fullness, it's easy to be generous. Generous with my time, generous with my money, generous with being an ear for somebody to speak into, and so on. And I think the same thing is true here. What's my personal capacity of my own self-peace? And if it's a thimble size, then that's how much I could offer to the rest of the world. If it's a 55-gallon drum size of peace that I have within me, I only need a cup, right? I've got lots of excess peace that I can share generously. Again, not again from an ego standpoint and say, yep, I've got more peace to give than you do. That's, you know, that's not it. But it's easy for me to be generous. So what condition am I in? And this is a question that your audience can ask themselves. What condition am I in right now in terms of a sense of peace? And you can measure it by whatever, volume or by distance or by whatever you want, 1 to 100. But how much am I at peace with myself? Not with my spouse, not with my kids, not with my in-laws, not with my boss, with me. How comfortable, another way of asking that is how comfortable I am in my own skin. Or if you really want to get down to the deeper level, to what degree am I judging myself for blank? If I'm judging myself, I'm not at peace. If I'm adopting somebody else's judgment of me, is that you're not smart enough, you're not thin enough, you're not young enough, you're not educated enough, you're not aware enough, whatever those things are, then again, it erodes that sense of peace within me. And so this is hard work. This is hard work. Do I have the courage to say no to my boss or to my incoming job or to my spouse or to my mom or to my in-laws? No, I don't want to whatever. It's not to spite them. It's not to be contentious. It's just, for me, this is what I have to do. I have to honor myself. I want to be an artist. I don't want to be a doctor. I only want 2 children. Thank you very much, Mom and Dad. We're not going to have 4 or 5 like you'd like to have. Okay? I mean, and these are, again, most of those decisions, by the way, aren't done consciously. They just kind of happen, right? It's the way that an elderly male that should be retiring now is not, right? That's my case, right? All of my colleagues from university, most of them are retired. Like, what do you mean retired? I'm just getting started here. I want to expand. But that honors the core within me. And I don't judge them for retiring because they want to retire. And they do have grandchildren they want to spend time with. And their health is going downhill, and they want to be able to make the most of that, and so on. But again, these are hard decisions that have to satisfy that sense of core first and foremost before going into, well, what will they think about it? I got over that at 37, 38 years old. Who cares?
Right.
They're not living my life. Even though they are telling me how to live my life, it's not their life to live. So do I have the maturity? Do I have the gumption? Do I have the strength to stand up to people that say, oh, no. You have to do this in order to get ahead in the corporate world. You have to do this in order to be accepted. You have to do this in order to be loved by, again, a family member. Tough. But I think that's what's being called on. So coming back to the thing of peace, I sleep really well at night. I love who I am now. I love who I have come back to being. And I have huge gratitude and feel very blessed for that.
As you say, Peter, it is a process, right? Everybody starts at a particular place, and then it takes time for us to, kind of be aware of who we are, what is right and what isn't, and then taking the right choices and looking for the harmony and connection in everything, right? And that way we're not disturbing the peace within and thereby outside.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. There's a lot. I mean, I haven't always been like this.
Yeah, true. I mean,
you and I have talked about some of that, but
yeah,
there are times when I did what was expected of Peter. As a child, as an employee, as an executive, as a trainer, as a neighbor. There's certain things that were expected to be a good neighbor. Okay, so that's what I did, because I was told to do that. Now, it's not to say all of that was bad advice.
Yeah.
It was unconscious, though, on my part. I just accepted that, oh, they know better. In fact, my mom and dad always tell, at 10 years old, Peter, we know better than you do. Well, yeah, they're 30 years old. Of course they know better than I do, right? But at a certain point in time in life, it's like, okay, so wait a minute, stop. Do they really know better than me in terms of who I am and what I need and what I'm here to contribute, or not? They're not being malicious. They're not wanting to work. They don't want to make my life miserable. They just don't know the core of me. And for half of my life, I didn't know the core of me either. So, thank God I had people to tell me what to do.
It's beautiful what you're saying, it's so honestly you're sharing those things. I mean, most of us are in the same situation where we don't really know who we truly are and our purpose here in this planet. But
I would agree.
Yeah.
98%. I'm working on to change that.
We're all work in progress in that sense.
Yeah.
And again, you also touched upon a very beautiful point about how our unconsciously we're just doing certain things, and when they're unconscious, how do we're not even aware of it, how do we, change those things? And that's where I think these meditative or mindful, heartful practices come into great play in, realigning ourselves with our core.
Most
Now,
definitely. Good.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for sharing, those wonderful things, actually. Our Heartfulness guide, Kamlesh Patel, who, I did mention earlier on, we affectionately call him as Taji. He says that the world needs to become a spiritual place for peace to prevail. Now, actually, I see there's a connection between, him and you. You founded the Coach for Life Institute, the spiritually based coach training school, right? Now, hence, I'd like to know your thoughts on, why or how world needs to become a spiritual place. What do you think of that?
I think he's a really smart guy. And I agree 100%. I've never met the man, but I've heard him on the videos, and I go, he's a brother. He's a brother by another mother. I'm sure.
That's beautiful. Yeah, you should meet him. When things normalize.
I would love that. I think he's absolutely right on in terms of the sense of spirituality. To me, supersedes everything that's human, everything that is tangible, everything that is supposed to bring happiness. And again, this is not a secret. I mean, this is not new information, right? I mean, Christ talked about that 2,000 years ago. Buddha talks about that 3,000 years ago. And all the prophets, all the monks, all the people that have had spiritual lives that have been documented, poets, Rumi. I mean, there's like truth is truth is truth is truth is truth, right? And if it all boils down, it's not about the house that they lived in. It's not about the work that they were doing. It's about the philosophy of there's something greater than I am. And so some people call that the creator, some call it the divine, some call it God or the deities. I mean, every culture has their way of depicting that spiritual essence. So I call myself, I don't consider myself particularly religious, although I came up in a religious family, okay? But I find myself now more and more spiritual and just dedicated to the idea that there is a divine guiding force, creator, that created within me a piece of that, if call it a God spark, okay? Some people will call that the soul. That again, by the very nature of our humanity, we share that commonality of essence. Now, you came out as a woman of your age. I came out as a man of my age, born in probably 2 different countries. But there's such a common link that we have as human beings. And you can extend it to all sapient beings if you want to. That when you boil it all down, it's all spiritual. So for the last 25 years in starting our coach training company, we talk about we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Again, which has been said in various ways by many, many people. But we really believe that. We live by that.
Yeah.
And so that to me defines the core. Now, we have 3 elements that we can put in human terms in that core. They're core values, again, not your cultural values or your societal values or your generation values, but core values. Again, that was put there, and then I call it an endowment from that sense of spirit, the creator, an endowment. Okay, so here's a gift, Peter. Here's some values that when you are being this way, you're being your most authentic self, okay? I think the second component of that core is a sense of life purpose. And for me, the life purpose is core identity as well as my core contribution. What am I here to do? What's my contribution? How do I make the planet a better place to live in, right? And then I think all of those are generative in nature. I don't think anybody is born with, okay, I want you to go out and start killing people. So I don't believe that. I think that they're all very generative and life affirming, okay, in terms of life purpose. The third component is my natural gifts and talents. Okay, so some people have really good hand-eye coordination and play baseball or rugby or cricket and can hit the whatever it is in cricket out of the park, and others can't. Others are good at ballerina or dancing or music or education or doctoring or compassion or all the other myriad of gifts and talents that different people have. And so my job as a human being is to know those, which again, most people don't. They've been told what to study. They've been told what to get good at. They've been told what competencies they need to do this, that, or the other. But they know some of their natural gifts and talents, but sometimes they haven't been nurtured. The young child that's an artist that gets talked out of being an artist, because we know that all artists are starving worldwide. That's a well-known fact, right? Every parent will tell you, artists starve. We don't want you to starve. Therefore, we want you to study your science. Okay, mom. Okay, dad. And now, how many people have you talked to that are scientists, medical or whatever research lab, that hate their job? Lots, because they've been forced into doing something that somebody wanted them to do so that they wouldn't go hungry as an artist. So first of all, to know those three things, and there's ways of getting at that quite easily, frankly, that is pretty darn accurate. And I've been doing this work for 25 years. So I'll give you, at the end, I'll give you a link for the audience to go to that can do that on their own, free, no charge. Now, I'd love to have 1 billion people. That's my goal. 1 billion people get to know themselves better. And we start tipping the scales of the universe to be yourself.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So that's the core of the message. Yeah, I've used core now 18 times in the last 3 minutes.
True. And as you say, our core self, we're all the same, right? And that's where I think when Daji says the world needs to become a spiritual place, I think that's what it is, right? That, as you're saying as well.
I think so. I think that that's the base. That's the bottom line. It's you know, we're unique because we're human, but we're exactly part of something that's bigger, that is universal, that's connecting. And when I can get back to that, and then I can express that in my unique way, and I can love you for expressing it in your unique way, without judgment, that we would have world peace overnight. I mean, can you imagine a world? Okay, now I'm going to do a hypothesis here. Postulate that every human being now, as of today, actually knows who they really are and knows those three things that they've been endowed with by their creator, whatever they call that, the divine, the universe, the organizing intelligence. But if they all knew those three things and then took the conscious decisions of the next, say, 2 days, just take 2 days. Okay, I have to make a decision about my children's education. I have to make a decision about, do I put this money into a bank account or a deposit? Do I change jobs? Do I take this job? Whatever it might be. Do I invite the in-laws over for the holiday or not because of COVID? If you take all those mundane decisions that we make every day, and map them to my core values, my life purpose, my natural gifts and talents, and every human being did that consciously, there'd be world peace 2 days from now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely convinced of that.
Yeah. And it's a collective power, right?
Be huge.
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't be huge. It is huge now. And I think the people that have held that consciousness for me before I knew it for myself, I thank them profusely. I don't even know who I couldn't name them by name, but I know the groups of people that do that. Religious clerics would be one. Monks in the Himalayas would be two. People that have been meditating for the last 10,000 years, right? So I think this is building. I'm not a pessimist in saying, oh, the world's going to hell in a handbasket and there's more wars now and more squabbles and more fights and more this, that, and the other. I am very optimistic about the human race coming back to who we really are. Loving, compassionate, caring, contributory. And so that my mother's prophecy of when I'm full, I can be very generous. We have all the resources we need on this planet. We have all the food we need on this planet to feed every human being. There is enough for all of us. But if I am not full inside, then I look for it outside. So I have to have that third car. I have to have that vacation home. I need to send my kids to only this school because that's the top school that they will be educated in to get along in life, or to go into politics, or to go into whatever. And I'm not saying that those things are wrong. I just think that they are being bought to fill a hole within that person or their psyche that says, I'm worthy because I own a lot of things. So they've traded the internal piece for an external representation of success.
Well said, Peter. Yes. I think we're so trained that way, right? Our external accomplishments and what we possess in terms of material gains defines peace for many of us. And we have to, move away from that and start looking inwards. And as you beautifully say, even simple practices like meditation, mindfulness, or heartfulness practices can change the destiny of millions of lives.
Absolutely.
The power of love and empathy and compassion. Beautiful, actually. I really enjoyed that answer.
Yeah.
Now, when and where do you think we should begin, work on creating peace as in individuals? Where do we start? Should we do our own individual work before we look outward? Can we leave Syria to fester while we sat at home meditating?
One of the questions I've asked myself later in life, is this my work to do? Is this my work to do? Is this the contribution that I'm here to do? Or what I've come to is that if I do my work purely that I'm here to do, then I am convinced that I have huge impact on those that are going to bring water to those that need water in wherever they have no clean water to drink each day. Or the hate and discontent that's festering in different parts of the world or in our own country, in the cities that have racial issues right now in the United States. Am I adding more hate into that cesspool of hate that's settling down to the lowest level of humanity for those that can't express it any other way than to shoot somebody? So for me, it's you know, and this is not an ostrich with its head in the sand saying, oh, yeah, none of that's going on. I don't believe that's going on. Well, of course it's going on. It's been going on for 10,000 years. So I can be conscious of that, and I can bring my conscious thoughts and prayers and meditation to those people that are desperate for hope, are desperate for a sense of peace, a way out of this. But a friend of mine that I just met just recently, she said, you know, there's negative peace and there's positive peace. Negative peace is the absence of terror.
I see.
Positive peace is where you have justice, equality, compassion, freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of choice, all those kinds of things. So I think that if an individual is taking really deep personal responsibility, they start with themselves first, and intention, and send it out. And maybe part of their work is going and being in part of the Peace Corps. Maybe it's being Doctors Without Borders. Maybe it's doing something at their local charity. Maybe it's doing something for their neighbor next door who's having a hard time with unemployment or unruly children or what have you. So to reach out to your immediate world. And when enough of us are doing that, then Syria and Africa and belligerent leaders will be, they won't have a platform anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
They don't have to recruit kids that are 14 and put a machine gun in their hands.
Mm.
Which is deeply troubling. Just to even say that is like, brings tears to my eyes.
Mm.
That still exists, yeah. So I would say this, as go to www.coreselfie, CoreSelfie.com. There's 3 exercises on that website for free. You can download them. And it's how to find out who you really are, those 3 components within you. There's a validation process in there if you don't believe that that's really you. And then there's a way to apply it to the any kind of decision that you have coming up that's important to you, to make it more consciously. And I would love to get all the support of the audience to give it to everybody you know, so that we get to 1 billion people to make more conscious, humane, loving, peaceful decisions for themselves.
I wish everybody else to do that as well, Peter. I took that, what do you call it? The test, the core test, which was in 3 parts, as you mentioned. It's quite a reflective process, actually. So
thank you.
I wish you all the best and hope it reaches more and more people. And your last answer was quite touching for me as well. You know, I mean, the whole discussion was about, you know, we all know that peace is within, but how do we stay in connection with that? And how do we, you know, share it? Or as you were saying, helping others, you know, do the same, feel the peace or connect within. And then through that, we certainly achieve, you know, world peace. Again, there's no world peace without individual peace, right? So I think this kind of neatly sets us up for a little experiential session on meditation. So I invite our audience now at this time. So please join us. This will last for about 5 to 7 minutes. So all you have to do is just close your eyes and simply follow the instructions that I'm going to give you now. So let's begin. Sit comfortably and close your eyes. Now let's begin with the toes. Wiggle your toes. Now feel them relax. Relax your ankles, and feet. Feel the energy from the Mother Earth entering your legs through your ankles, moving upwards, relaxing the calf muscles, the knees, thighs, and hips. Now feel how your both legs are completely relaxed. Take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Relax. Relax your hips, stomach, and waist. Breathe in and breathe out. Now feel this energy in your back. From the top to the bottom, your entire back is relaxed. Breathe in. Breathe out. And relax. Now relax your chest and shoulders. Feel your shoulders simply melting away. Now let the energy flow into your arms, relaxing the upper arms, the lower arms, hands, all the way to the tip of the fingers. Now feel how both your arms are completely relaxed. Now relax your neck muscles. Let the energy flow into your face, relaxing the jaws, mouth, nose, facial muscles, earlobes, eyes, forehead, all the way to the top of the head. Now feel how your whole body is completely relaxed. Now, gently draw your attention to your heart. Imagine a source of light that's already illuminating your heart, is pulling and attracting your attention inwards. If you have disturbing thoughts, try and be unmindful of them and just treat them as passing clouds. Gently bring your attention back to the light in the heart. Remain still and quiet and absorbed in this light until you hear a prompt to finish. That's all. You may gently open your eyes when you feel ready to do so. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
So, I enjoyed, interviewing you, and you really added a lot of value to, whatever we as a mindful and heartful community have been doing, by all these meditations. Very motivational and beautiful.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
Most welcome, Peter. And I'm sure our audience would have enjoyed your, talk on peace. And I'd like to close this by thanking our audience for joining us on a busy Saturday. So take care all. Bye for now.